everyone, I'm Keen947, aka Wolfkeen, and welcome to another edition of my My Little Pony Vlogs. Today, I'm talking about Owl's Well That Ends Well, written by Cindy Morrow. I don't know what to say. What is there to say about this episode that hasn't been said already? This episode is just one of those episodes that leave you lukewarm at best because of many different factors. Let's go. The episode starts with basically Twilight and Spike preparing supplies and stuff like that for basically this meteor shower that happens every 100 years. So, of course, Spike begins showing how competent he is in this episode with his ability of being Twilight's assistant in many cases. Which is a good thing. That's one thing I like about Spike. I hate that they made him into a punchline in some episodes in later seasons, but this one shows that he's very competent. At least during the beginning. So basically, Twilight begins calling Spike her number one assistant, and Spike begins to try to milk it a little bit. So what happens next is that Twilight asks Spike to get a book for her, and unfortunately Spike sneezes on it and burns it. Not wanting to disappoint Twilight at this point, he puts it back. I ain't gonna lie, I would have done the same thing because when I was a kid, I would do something like that. Like if I didn't want to eat something or I didn't want to, I did something wrong, I would try to hide it as best as I could. I broke my dad's watch when I was a kid and I didn't tell him. He found out on his own later, which just got me in the worst trouble, so of course, we begin seeing that, the main six are gathered for this, meteor shower that's going to be setting off, and they're setting everything up. They're setting the blanket up, setting the punch up, and other stuff like that. And of course, this leads to, another thing that I have to say. That Spike was the one who made these cookies and stuff like that, and he's the one setting everything up. This shows how competent Spike is. How competent and smart he is. And hell, the main six begin, what's the best word? Drooling over him or something like that? I don't know. Idolizing him? I don't know what the best word is. And then Rarity gives Spike this weird bow with, gems all over it. So what happens now is that basically the meteor shower happens, they begin enjoying themselves, and Spike ends up falling asleep. He fell asleep inside the punch, and then Pinkie Pie makes one of the stupidest jokes I've ever heard in my life, when she said, you know what?
And now the punch has been spiked!
No. So what happens next is that Twilight puts Spike to bed, and then she begins trying to do some work and research about the meteors. But then for some reason, she sees this weird shadow out there. Then, of course, when she tries to close the window, it doesn't close all the way, and it blows her paper out the window. What happens next is basically, this owl comes in and brings the paper back to Twilight. And the owl gets ready to fly away, and Twilight, gets it to stop. And then the owl, gets cold, and Twilight's like, I got no one else with me, you want to stay? And the owl stays with Twilight. So what happens next is that Spike wakes up and finds out that he overslept, which means he didn't do his chores or anything like that. And so Spike begins on a running rampant trying to get to work on his chores and stuff like that. And then he's told by Twilight that that Aloysius did it. God, is that name so hard to pronounce for myself. Basically, Aloysius did Spike's chores for him, and Spike begins getting jealous of this owl. Why? Why would Spike get jealous of the owl? Oh, because he's threatened that it'll take his job? Aren't owls nocturnal? Aren't owls nocturnal? That's the question. And here's one of the problems I have with this episode. This owl is awake in the mornings. Owls are nocturnal. How is an owl awake at this time? I've never seen an owl awake during the day. Unless someone's willing to correct me. So, of course, Spike begins getting worried about this owl and warning Aloysius that, you're number 2, I'm number 1, and stuff like that, basically leading to a petty problem. And all Aloysius keeps saying is, whoop. I guess that's the only thing it can say, but you get the point. Then, of course, the main 6 begin gushing over Aloysius, and then Rarity makes a special bow for Aloysius. You're telling me that Rarity made Spike a special bow and then made another for Aloysius, whom she just met. What? That makes her, like... Does anybody remember the word of the definition of special? Oh, I made you a special bow tie for you. Oh, I made one for the owl, too. Like, what? What? That's like if my mom made me a special birthday card and then, like, you know, a special card for myself and then made another one for someone that she just met. Like, I would think, like, that's not very special anymore. Like, you just made one for someone you never met. You just met the person. So Spike begins to try to help Twilight out to the best of his ability, where he's trying to get a quill. And, of course, Twilight tries to call him back, but doesn't do anything about it. Spike runs all the way around town to this place called Quills and Sofas, then chases a chicken just to get a feather, and then when he finally gets back, basically Twilight already got a quill from Aloysius. Apparently, Aloysius took one of the feathers off and gave it to Twilight so she could use it as a quill. Question: if that really was the case, why didn't you send Aloysius to stop Spike? So what happens next is basically, Spike passes out, I guess, from exhaustion, and then he's woken up by Twilight when she finds the book that he burned by accident. Spike tries his best to explain the situation, but of course he gets in trouble from Twilight. He feels that Aloysius set him up, so now he decides to try to set up Aloysius. And then he wears, like, this weird outfit from, like, you know how, like, 1980s like, old school villains were, with, like, the black top hat, the black cape, the weird mustache and stuff like that? That's how Spike dressed himself up. He ended up getting a toy mouse, and then he ends up ripping the mouse open, messing it up, dropping ketchup on it, and making it look like... What?! Do you know what scene you just depicted? In a kid's show? You just depicted the brutal murder of a mouse. I apologize for my mental breakdown. It was stupid and very uncalled for. Just the thought of Spike showing a brutal murder like that, like depicting a murder like that of a toy, I don't care if it was a toy mouse, that's still depicting a very brutalizing murder. I know owls eat mice, but this is a kid show. What you been doing, Dad? Dude, that's like the Tom and Jerry movie. That's like the Tom and Jerry movie trailer where, you know, in the old cartoons with Tom and Jerry, when he got cut in half and there was no blood, but in the Tom and Jerry movie, when Tom got cut in half, there was blood. Yeah, great image to show kids. So basically what happens is that Twilight catches Spike in the act and basically is insanely infuriated with Spike, to the point where he feels like that Twilight doesn't love him anymore and he runs away from home. What? Okay, why would you run away from home instead of trying to talk to her or something like that? Okay, I know he's a child, basically, but still. So basically, he walks all the way to the Everfree Forest. Spike, you know it's dangerous there, and you go there? Really? So what basically happens is, he finds this cave with like a bunch of gems, and, well, there was a dragon in there. So, of course, the dragon gets pissed off that, Spike is eating his gems, and then tries to kill him, basically, only for Aloysius to come in and save him. And then Twilight basically heading out of the cave and, getting them out of there. Of course, Aloysius helped Twilight get out of there as well, and then, we finally get the idea of the resolution. So basically, Spike explains why he was acting this way, and Twilight begins to say, like, wait a minute, I didn't want Aloysius to take your job. I need help at night. You're a baby dragon. Owls are nocturnal. What? That owl was awake every day. It was with Twilight. Not one of the instances besides that night that she met it, and that night that it saved Spike, was how Aloysius was not I'm gonna lose it. I'm about to lose it. So basically, what Twilight says that she needs help at night. That owl has been awake every single morning it's been with Twilight, and was basically doing most of Twilight's chores anyways. So that line that she said about needing help at night is bull crap. And then Twilight says, I should have been more sensitive to your emotions. No, duh, you stupid bitch! And then, of course, Twilight actually writes a moral to Celestia, basically about trying not to jump the gun in many cases, but here it is. Let me just say this, guys. All's well that ends well. I hate this episode. Some people are lukewarm about it. Other people hate it. I hate it. This episode is just so ungodly stupid. It's insane. Spike in this episode has been shown, and Spike in this episode during the beginning was shown to be very competent, very smart, and very reliable. And now, after Aloysius appears, he's been shown to be stupid, incompetent, and idiotic. What the hell? Not to mention, Twilight's explanation about needing help at night is bullcrap, because that owl was awake every single morning. Like, I don't know how many days passed, but there was no time where, you know, we saw Aloysius awake at night. We only saw her during the day. And here's the final problem that I have with Aloysius. Aloysius is a Mary Sue. There is no way you can beat her. There is no way to beat Aloysius. Aloysius is perfect in every way, has no kind of problems whatsoever, and makes no kind of mistakes whatsoever. And the stupidest thing that I have is that how, like, I don't get how everybody forgot all about Spike after Aloysius came around. Oh, Spike, we gave him a special bow tie for him. Now let's give one to Aloysius the very next day after saying how special Spike was. And like I said, Twilight's argument, and then of course the explanation of how Twilight found Spike. Like, how did you find me in the cave? Oh, it was your ketchup-covered feet. It fucking rained! How can you see ketchup-covered feet on the ground after it freaking rained? This episode has like so many inconsistencies that it's just ungodly. I think this is one of the worst episodes of Season 1 because of how ungodly inconsistent it is and how badly they wrote Spike in this episode. I mean, this episode showed Spike to be a very smart and capable person. And now, after Aloysius came around, he's completely idiotic. I don't know what they were thinking with this episode. Who was it that wrote this episode? Who was it? Cindy Morrow. Cindy Morrow. I'm sorry to say, but Cindy Morrow, you're done, like in the words of Angry Joe, Cindy Morrow, you're done f***ed it up! You done f***ed up Spike! Anyways, I'm gonna stop before I go into another mental rage because now I gotta go see a psychiatrist because of this episode. And I'm not even a party of one! I'm not even a party of one. I'm not even a party of one and I'm already going mad. I'm not even a party of one. I'm Keen947, aka Wolfkeen, and I'll see you all for the next pile of...